Countless adventures begin with exploring an old cave or mine. Hello there, my friends. We'll begin by making a cardboard base as seen in one of my earlier videos. A simple sketch, and using a dwarf for scale, will help us to get started. Making hills and rock formations out of cardboard is pretty easy, so we'll start by cutting a sloped piece and then gluing it down roughly where we drew on our sketch. I used my old favorite tacky glue for this project, but you could also use hot glue and trade the time it takes having to hold it down for it to set in exchange for potential fire damage. While that dries, we'll cut up a bunch of chunks of cardboard to be the rocks and rubble. Here I'm making some cuts in the cardboard and then bending them inwards to give our cave more of a rounded shape. Yeah, something like that is a good start. And now to make our cave look rocky and natural, we'll cover the walls in glue and then in chunks of cardboard. I can imagine what you're thinking at this point, and just trust me, it'll all work out. Here I used our structure as a rough template to make its roof. However, I made a mistake. Before gluing it on, I should have painted the interior black. I fix it with a spray can later on, but it would be easier to just paint it black before you glue the roof on. And then, just like the walls, we'll cover some of the ground and the roof with more chunks of our cardboard to represent more rocks and rubble. To give the cardboard a rock texture, we're going to paint it with cheap white glue and then lay toilet paper on top of it. We'll do the same for the edges of the base. It's more of like a filler to hide the cardboard texture. After covering everything we need to with the toilet paper, we'll use some watered down PVA glue and paint that on top of it. The original layer of glue will be holding it down, and then the watered down PVA will combine with the toilet paper to give us some very nice textures. This is a technique I've been developing for a while now, and I'll go into more detail on it in another video. After it's dry, if any of the edges have warped, you can just bend them back straight. It's no big deal. It's just cardboard after all. Now, the essential step for crafting any kind of natural terrain. The dirt step. Anywhere that you feel like could use some more texture, paint on some more glue and sprinkle on some dirt. And this is nothing fancy, just dirt that I gathered from my yard and baked in the oven for a while. We especially want to focus on the base. That's what'll help it look good on the tabletop. And after it's dry, anywhere you'd like to add more texture, just put on some more glue and more dirt. To seal down all the dirt and details, make our craft strong, and serve as a base layer, we'll add a mix of about 50-50 Mod Podge and black paint. I always put this on in 2 steps. First, I like to paint the edges, including the bottom of the base, to protect it. The reason for this is so that you can have something to hold on to when you're putting it on the rest of the model. And then second, when the edges are dry, you can hold on to one of the edges and paint the rest of it. And there's me fixing my mistake from earlier. For the final step before painting, I like to give everything a dry brush of an off-white. This is a new part of the process for me, but it makes it easy to see the details and helps a lot with painting. A simple paint job is perfect for a project like this. I began by painting the ground, the dirt, and some random stones with this dark brown. Then I dry brushed all of the brown with a tan. Next, I mixed together a light gray and brushed that on all of the stones, just sort of roughly. Not quite a dry brush, but not quite like a full base coat. For some color variation, I used a homemade dark wash to fill in cracks, crevices, and anywhere else I thought looked good with a little more darkness. After painting it on, you can just dab it off with a paper towel to get some color variation. Finally, to bring back highlights and tie the entire piece together, I gave everything a dry brush with the same off-white. At this point, I remembered that I wanted to make this into a mine entrance and not just a cave. Not a problem. I took some of my wood textured cardstock and glued it in. It's looking pretty good, but I wanted to try experimenting with something new, using a flocking from recycled tea leaves. So I painted down some glue and sprinkled them around. I went lightly at first because I wanted to see how it looked. And as it turns out, I really like that. So I put on a lot more. And just like the dirt, this is nothing special. After I make tea, I let the bags dry out, and this is what we're left with. I thought a pile of planks looked good there. I've never used flocking before, but to make sure it's solid, I used some watered down Mod Podge in this little spray mister bottle. Tested it out first, and then sprayed it down pretty much on the entire piece, but especially anywhere I was worried about the flocking or the details falling off. And then I just used a paper towel to mop up any areas where there might have been too much, before I left it to dry overnight. For something made out of cardboard, toilet paper, and dirt, I think it turned out beautifully. For a final detail, I dry brushed the flocking and some of the wood with a color I made from mixing together blue and yellow. I think a piece like this could work well for wargame tables, blocking line of sight, providing detail, but it works especially well for adventure games, role-playing games, games where encounters happen, where caves need to be explored, mine workers need to be rescued, and dungeons need to be searched for treasure. Thank you for watching, my friends. Take care until next time.